Hello everybody, my name is Sinan Kassim. I'm here today with Commissioner Joshua Rydell of Coconut Creek, and he is running for Broward County State Attorney, a seat that's being vacated after 44 years. And it's a chance to make history because whoever comes in this seat is going to have an opportunity to make a lot of great changes in the criminal justice system.
Absolutely true.
Yep. So thank you for joining me today, Commissioner Rydell.
Thank you for coming in and obviously getting out a message that's beyond important in today's world.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And my first question is about you and about your commitment to public service, because I'm interested, and I think the voters would be interested to know, whether it was childhood or in adulthood, what was that defining moment for you that made you realize this is what you wanted to do? That public service is your passion and giving back to the community.
It's a great and fitting question because in my life, when I was in middle school, when I was in high school, I was always involved in student government.
Okay.
I was always a representative. I was always speaking for my peers.
Right.
That transcended into college and law school where I held similar roles. So engagement through governmental type service when you're in school segued into the community. When I graduated law school, I got real active in my community in Coconut Creek. That's where we've been living. Me and my wife have been living for a while. We got married. We bought our first house there. We had our kids there.
Right.
And an opportunity came up. And at the time when I ran, I was 33 years old. I was one of the younger elected officials in all of Broward County.
Right.
We ran and we won. And I was actually the youngest elected official in the city of Coconut Creek's history.
That's amazing. That's great information to know. And I'm glad that we have a chance to sit here and talk more about your experiences and your vision for the future of Broward County.
Absolutely. It's important.
Yep. And my next question also involves your personal experience. You've been a city commissioner for Coconut Creek. How is that experience, right, is going to help you and prepare you for the office that you are running for today?
It's a twofold issue. Because the first issue is the main credentials I have is through my education, through my experience, through my professional credentials as an attorney, as a criminal defense attorney in Broward County. I practice in all across the state of Florida, all across the country, in various federal courthouses. But what's unique, and what I think makes me unique in this race, is my experience since 2015 as a Coconut Creek City Commissioner, engaged in representing a community, going through a huge budget, finding how to get more money for police programs, for our kids programs, for capital improvement projects, analyzing how me and my colleagues, the five of us together, choose what is the priority for Coconut Creek and how do we spend the money that we raise from our taxes. And it's a balancing test. You got to balance keeping people safe. You got to balance your fire department, filling potholes in roads, and other capital improvement projects that make a community better. And people don't necessarily realize sometimes, but local government is who defines who picks up your trash, who comes to your door when you call 911, who you pay your water bill to. It's in local government. I think we're the people that are closest to the people that could affect people.
And voters know who their city commissioners, their mayors are, but we don't hear about who our Broward County State Attorney is. I can say a lot of voters don't know who that is, but know who their mayors and city commissioners are. So to have someone with that experience is very valuable. And my next question is about the mass shootings that we see across Broward County, across our country. In Broward County, in the city of Parkland, we had the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and it took away 17 angels from our world. They were victims of gun violence. We're also seeing students who are facing PTSD, anxiety, depression, and the worry is that'll contribute more to the school-to-prison pipeline as well. But we're seeing more active threats of gun violence in our schools. What would you do as Broward State Attorney around the issue of gun violence for our community and for our children?
Gun violence is the single biggest threat to our youth today. More people are killed in this country due to guns and gun violence than almost anything else. And our commitment as an elected official, as I sit here, as the job I'm running for, as a parent to two small kids, is to protect them and to raise a generation and leave the world a little better than we found it.
Right.
And the commitment to end gun violence is tremendous. What happened in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, we're the neighboring city. It hurt everybody. It changed the world we know it. It changed how we help our kids in school. Kids now have drills, active shooter drills. Kindergartners live in a world where it's not just fire drills anymore. There's code reds, there's active shooter drills.
Right.
We live in a world that, and we live in that world because of what's happened.
Right.
Just this past month, there was 2 terrible mass shootings. There has to be a commitment, not just amongst communities and elected officials, to end it and to find the solutions for it. And obviously, the Broward County State Attorney, who's the top prosecutor in Broward County, has the ability to severely punish anything associated with guns. But the most important thing is the interconnectivity, is being able to engage communities, municipalities, police agencies, to come together as a community to find the right solutions and to be a voice to Tallahassee when you need to be, to Washington when you need to be, and to be willing to stand up and say this has got to end, and to be solution-based, not speech-based. I don't want to sit and have a speech saying I want to change these things. I'm going to be a guy on the forefront actively changing.
I love that. And we need someone who's truly committed to the issue of ending gun violence in our country and our communities. In Tallahassee, the state attorney's office decided not to prosecute any cases of marijuana. As Broward County State Attorney, would you make that same pledge?
So what they did in Tallahassee is they stopped prosecuting misdemeanor amounts of marijuana under the amount of 20 grams, which is in this state considered the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor.
Right.
Other states have much different thresholds. I have lived, in almost 15 years as a criminal defense attorney, lived numerous prosecutions of marginal amounts of marijuana that people have, and in the state of Florida, what people don't know is that if you're convicted of a drug crime, your driver's license is suspended.
Right.
So there's hundreds and thousands of people that have been convicted of a marijuana offense, even a misdemeanor marijuana offense, and they've lost their driving privilege, which just puts them back in this cycle that it's almost impossible to get out of. So the reality is the policies need to be changed. We're hoping that there's going to be a trajectory before I win Broward County State Attorney. These are policies that need to be changed now. And I say it across the spectrum. While I could be an advocate and say, I'm going to change these policies, that's the easy part to say. We have to advocate for that now. There's a movement around this state to stop prosecutions of small amount drug possessions, specifically of marijuana. The Broward State Attorney's Office right now needs to be doing that. They don't need to wait till January 2021 when I take office. But I'm very committed to that. And you're seeing the same thing in the most populous counties around South Florida.
So you wouldn't pledge to do it, but you're hoping that something comes out of it before you enter the office.
Well, the answer is, of course I would pledge to do it.
Right.
That's a given.
Right.
But we have, the race that I'm running in is until August of next year, about a year from now.
Right.
The next state attorney is not going to be sworn into office until January of 2021.
Right.
That's almost 18 months away. We're in a place right now where there's major issues on the forefront that need to be changed now. There's different programs that need to be in place now. Marjory Stoneman Douglas happened, what seems like yesterday, but it wasn't. And while we had some great legislation that came out of Tallahassee, it didn't go far enough. It doesn't protect us enough. So there's changes and protections that we need now. So it always sounds good that I'll say, of course I want to do this, but I'm advocating for that now to be done now before the current state attorney, who's been there for 44 years, leaves office.
Right. And what about the cash bail system? Would you also pledge to end that system, and what would you do surrounding what's happening in that area as well?
Now, the interesting thing with cash bail is we actually are in a unique community right now. There are means that people can get out of jail with bail and without bail. The cash bail system is appropriate in certain circumstances.
Okay.
It's not appropriate when you have indigent people that don't have the ability to get out of jail. But for certain cases, I think it's needed and required, candidly. So the premise, the concept of we need to reform an entire cash bail system, while there are reforms that need to be made, the system in itself is a legitimate system that does protect a community. When somebody embezzles hundreds of thousands of dollars, they need to post significant monetary bond in order to secure their release. It's to protect the community. But there's other facets that need to be used, which we don't necessarily use here in the state of Florida. We're slowly getting to be more up to date with national practices, but it's a work. So do I think abolishing a cash bail system works? It doesn't work because I've seen systems like that in other parts of the country. A modified version of it works, but it can't work in a system where poor people, minority people can't get out of jail because of cash bail. That's when it doesn't work.
Something else that is, a legitimate concern that, like you said, affects a lot of people in our county, around the country, is wrongful convictions. How would you work to end many of these wrongful convictions that we see?
Most state attorney's offices around the state have conviction integrity units that are independent of the actual state attorney's office. I've heard through the grapevine of being in the legal system locally here, the criminal justice system, that this state attorney is engaging a new policy to have a conviction integrity unit. I welcome that. That is something that I pledge to do. That is the most important thing. We have had people in this county that have been exonerated after years and years on death row. That's unacceptable. There needs to be a system that is checking the system. There needs to be an entity that is looking over all these conviction rates to make sure the people that are getting convicted really did the crime. And to not wait 20 years to exonerate somebody.
Right.
To streamline that as a
And
priority.
that's what we're seeing a lot.
To streamline that as a priority. And we haven't been in a system where that has been a major concern on the forefront.
Taking that a step further, with racial disputes, how would you help in fixing a lot of the racial disputes that we're seeing where a lot of the convictions on black people are much more, and that's leading to much more mass incarceration. That's leading again back to the school-to-prison pipeline. And if you look at the statistics, which I'm sure you've seen, in the front lines, how are you going to, as Broward State Attorney, help in that issue as well?
You can walk into a criminal courtroom any day of the week, and the majority of the people that are in that courtroom that are in custody are minorities. That's a problem.
Absolutely.
But we are in a byproduct age right now of decades of policies that haven't worked. Decades of policies where fathers and brothers and uncles are in prison. We've started a trend years ago, and we're really seeing the result of it now. So this isn't just about changing new policies to protect minority communities and things like that, but that's obviously the most important. It's changing the entire culture to bring people together to actually try to solve crime.
Right. Absolutely. Back to the school-to-prison pipeline. Do you have a plan when it comes to that? Because that's something we've been hearing about for a long time. And the problem lies both in our schools, but it also lies in the plans and the policies of the state attorney's office. What would your role be in the to fix the school-to-prison pipeline that we're seeing in our country, in our county?
The most important thing right now is the acknowledgement on the forefront that we got two major issues. We got mental health issues and we got substance abuse issues.
Right.
And that starts, in some cases, in our young people in our schools. That's where it starts. Obviously, it can continue to people that are much older. That's the first acknowledgement. So when you can acknowledge that, and that those two forefronts need to be a priority, then you can start having a bigger discussion. Then you can, the real issue in any sort of criminal justice reform, I have a platform and I'm running on a position that we need to be community-oriented in our schools. We need to be community-oriented in our communities. We need to tie communities in to criminal justice, to prosecutions. The only time you see a prosecutor shouldn't be when you're in a courtroom.
Right.
These are people that need to get into these schools to deliver a message. That has never been done in this county. And we're going to do that. That's how, through education, through mentorship. There's an old saying with kids, it takes a village. And you've seen communities. After the tragedy in Parkland, you've seen a Parkland community come out strong.
Absolutely.
Come there for each other, and come out in a way that shows the best parts of humanity after the worst part of humanity happened to them. That can be done in every community, in every small community. It can be done in associations, it can be done in towns and cities. That there could be a better engagement with each other to be the better village for our youth. That's what we owe them. And if we can do that, that's how we stem a pipeline. Now, as the top prosecutor, as the Broward County State Attorney, we're going to be able to dictate policies that promote that. Serious crime deserves serious punishment. And I'm not going to ever say it doesn't. But there's people that we can get out of the system and divert resources to keeping them out of the system. And those are the people that we need to focus on and save. And the real bad people, they need to go away. And they need to go away for a long time.
And I'm actually part of that community, the Parkland community, and you're absolutely right. I can attest to that community coming together even stronger than ever. And I'm glad you also touched on mental health and substance abuse, because those are both issues that are extremely important as well. Last question, the final pitch to voters across Broward County. Why should we elect you to be our next state attorney?
After 44 years of having the same prosecutor with the same policies in this office, Broward County is given an opportunity. It's an opportunity for change. It's an opportunity to invest in our future. It's an opportunity to put priorities on victim crime, on serious punishment to serious crime. It's also an opportunity to understand that there's people that don't belong in the system. And the answer to those people is not sending them to prison. The answer is trying to fix it. It's understanding that when you put a prosecutor in a room and you only give them a hammer, they're only going to look for a nail. We need to be giving our prosecutors toolboxes to start fixing crime and fixing communities. And through education, through engagement, through involvement, my commitment is when I'm the next Broward County State Attorney, we're going to do that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rydell. This is a historic election. Make sure you follow Commissioner Rydell's campaign, and make sure you follow the election, because it's an extremely important one.
I appreciate you coming and being engaged.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.